Hi, everybody. I know I haven't done any live streams in a while, but today I'm going to be reviewing a video by Godis where he shames people for basically providing for their families. He calls them slaves, which I do recognize that there is a such thing as wage slavery in America, but um, the problem is that he's blaming the wrong people. But before I get into reviewing his video, I just want to do a quick overview for um, anarcho-primitivism, which I've talked about before. But this is a very quick overview because he's basically touting himself as an anarcho-primitivist, but um, at the same time, and paradoxically, he enjoys the conveniences of society, of modern society. It seems that he lives in an apartment. Um, he goes around eating meat, calling people slaves. And I am a proponent of anarcho primitivism, but I don't think that he necessarily fits the bill. I would not consider him to be an anarcho primitivist by any measure. But let's just do a quick overview of this. Anarcho-primitivism, also known as anti-civilization, anarchism is an anarchist critique of civilization that advocates a return to non-civilized ways of life through deindustrialization, abolition of the division of labor or specialization, abandonment of large-scale organization, all technology other than prehistoric technology, and the dissolution of agriculture. Anarcho-primitivists critique the origins and alleged progress of the Industrial Revolution and industrial society. Most anarcho-primitivists, excuse me, most anarcho-primitivists advocate for a tribal way of life, while some see an even simpler lifestyle as beneficial. According to anarcho-primitivists, the shift from hunter-gatherer to agricultural subsistence during the Neolithic Revolution gave rise to coercion, social alienation, and social stratification. Gosh, I don't really want to get into um, veganism. I would like to debate somebody about that because that's one of the things that I know. I feel like if I even mention veganism, I'm just going to trigger people and they're just going to unsubscribe. And at this time, I'm trying to rebuild my channel, so I'm not even going to go there right now. Um, but I do have ethical objections to that particular philosophy because it is um, it's basically incrementalism. And as an anarchist, I am for the dismantling of the state and also for the dismantling of capitalism. There is no ethical consumption under capitalism. So I don't think an incremental approach is going to do anything. It there's no tangible results to be seen. Um, and I know people are going to come for me for even. I'm not even saying anything. I know people are probably going to come for me for that. I'm trying to be sensitive because I know people are triggered when it comes to that. But I, on an ethical, philosophical level, I just don't agree with it. I just don't. Um, Anarcho-primitivism argues that civil. I think I just read that. Okay, the roots of primitivism lay in Enlightenment philosophy and a critical theory of the Frankfurt School. The early modern philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau blamed agriculture and cooperation for the development of social inequality. Um, y'all know I did a whole review of his discourse on what was it called? The inequalities. He talked about the natural inequalities and the man-made inequalities. Things like strength, your natural ability, but then there's inequalities that are imposed by society, and most social injustice are caused by civilization. That civilization leads to degeneracy. It leads to unethical practices. So that's the reason why. And again, I'm trying not to get into and that I'm trying not to go into great detail about that because I know people get triggered, but you have to address the root cause. And in my view, the first cause is going to be the imposition of life. And then secondly is going to be civilization. So unless you are addressing those two root causes, then it's a non-starter for me. You can't start in the middle and just say your consumption is unethical when you're not starting from the very beginning of the origins of it. It doesn't fix the problem. You need to curb um, human population and then the economic model, which is capitalism, and society as a whole. Civilization is what leads to degeneracy. Unless you're going to return to a sustainable hunter-gatherer lifestyle and drastically reduce the human population, then you're not actually trying to present any real solutions. Um, in his discourse on inequality, Rousseau depicted the state of nature as a primitivist utopia. However, he stopped short of advocating a return to it. Instead, he called for political institutions to be recreated anew in harmony with nature and without the artificiality of modern civilization. Later, critical theorist Marx Horkheimer argued that environmental degradation stemmed directly from social oppression, which had vested all labor and consequently caused widespread alienation. Um, yeah, I need to come back and talk about Max Horkheimer. Um, but that's the root cause of it. So I'm sorry, you can't start in the middle of it and then try to shame people when you're not addressing the root cause of it. So with that being said, I just want to do a quick overview of what anarcho-primitivism is all about, and I probably will be doing more content to discuss it in greater detail. Now I want to get into this video that that Goldis did. Here we go. I'm going to make sure y'all can see it. Why is it not showing? I thought I was showing y'all that what I was just reading, but it wasn't showing. Share screen. Here we go. Can y'all see it? Okay, there it is. There we go. Now we're going to go through this video because I just wanted y'all to understand, because I am an anarcho-primitivist, but I don't consider him to be an anarcho-primitivist at all. For him to be going around calling people slaves is absolutely ridiculous.
Are men allergic to work?
Men are not launching into the workforce. Let us do this, because we honor men who are doing the right thing. How many of you guys have a job? Hey, thanks for going to work.
Does he work for the government or something? Those are the only people who want humans to work, men and women.
And if you've got 2 jobs, you're the best guy in the room.
What? If you have 2 jobs, then you are an absolute loser and you failed at life. My whole life has essentially revolved around avoiding work. I haven't had an actual normal job, 9 to 5 or whatever, which in my case used to be 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., even worse. Actually, I haven't thought about this in a while. Must be 15 years now, maybe? Yeah, pretty much, whatever. It's been a very long time.
I'm going to stop before I forget everything that I want to say. The problem with him is that his way of not working has been basically mooching off of other people. He was dating a wealthy girlfriend, living off his girlfriend's parents. It's not as if he was providing for himself. He was just basically being a moocher. And additionally, he has children. I believe he has at least 2. And so those 2 children did not choose to come into this world. He imposed life on those 2 children, and he rejects antinatalism. He's not understanding the interplay between the imposition of life and what he refers to as slavery, right? That by imposing life onto his children, he subjected his children to a life of capitalistic drudgery. And he's not taking any responsibility for that. Nor is he addressing any of the systemic issues which underlie their human condition. All he's going to do is he's basically going to punch down. He's going to say you're a slave for being a capitalist, for capitalist fodder. He's not going to really tell you how to get out of that circumstance. It's just a complete non-starter. It just I don't even understand what's the point of it. Like, there's nothing pedagogical about his content. He's just shaming people, trying to make himself feel superior. And this is why I'm not. This is why I can't take him seriously, because an anarcho-primitivist would not do what he's doing. We would actually present solutions, right? Solutions such as living off the grid, starting a sustainable community that is outside of the system. But he doesn't do that. All he does is say, you're a slave. I'm not going to do anything to help you. I'm just going to shame you, and then I'm going to capitalize off it. He's sitting here in his apartment making videos with modern technology and then shaming people for not being primitivist, which he's not. There's nothing primitive about him. The fact that he eats raw meat does not make him primitive.
I've had a few jobs in my life, maybe like 4 or 5, and it was just horrible. There was nothing worse that I went through in life. I knew that after these few jobs that I never want to work again. I can't. It's impossible.
And he sounds very privileged, because for most of us, we don't have a choice. What are we supposed to do? And this is the problem with the imposition of life. He's not making a connection that by imposing life, first of all, they're going to be thrown into the education system. They're going to be indoctrinated, which he calls slave. He's not addressing the root causes of any of this stuff. He's punching down. He's going to say that because you went to public school, you're indoctrinated, you're a slave. He's not presenting any alternatives. This guy would not be taken seriously in any anarchist orbit. Like, nobody would take him seriously, because he has no solutions. And he is engaging in capitalistic behavior. He's exploiting their condition in order to make money. The fact that they have to work, he's using that as a source of entertainment for his own economic benefit.
At this point in my life, I would probably rather be homeless than work. That's how much I can't stand it.
We don't even have men who are looking at going to work as a masculine responsibility.
Right, because it literally isn't. You're a slave. If there's anything that a masculine man would do, an actual man, natural one, then it would be not to work. You wouldn't be a slave to your government, to the boss, whatever. The worst kind of job.
No, I'm going to stop you right there. Even if you don't work, you're still a slave to the government. The government controls us through physical force. So we're all a slave, and there is no way to get around it unless you're going to fight back against it, which he's not doing. Anarchists believe in direct action and mutual aid. I don't see him doing anything. We're slaves just through the imposition of life. We are born slaves. We're born into this status capitalistic system, and I don't see what is the benefit of just shaming it. He's basically a spectator. He's sitting there observing, pointing out things which are obvious, that the government controls us. Fine, the government controls him too. The government controls through physical force. So he's a slave just like the rest of us. And his children are also slaves. And he needs to take accountability for the fact that he put his children in this oppressive system.
You can have is to be a police officer or in the military. Then you're just an absolute tool of the government.
I'm going to push back against that also. I actually served in the military, and the military I did not feel was oppressive at all because I signed a contract. I got something out of it. I knew exactly what I was getting myself into. I knew the costs and the benefits. So it's completely different than being a civilian where you're just basically forced to be a slave and you get nothing out of it. You're forced to obey unjust laws. The government does not do anything for you. The government doesn't do anything but take your damn money. It's not the same thing. I would rather be in, I mean, of course, nobody wants to go to war and get their heads blown off, but just the military way of life, they actually take care of you, which compared to the civilian way of life, you don't get anything out of it. All they do is tell you what to do. They take your money. They don't protect you. Um, they make your life a living hell, and you just have to obey through threat of physical force. So no, I don't think that the military is slavery. I think it's a voluntary contract. Um, I would say that if you are drafted, then that is involuntary servitude. But aside from that, I think he's completely wrong. I knew what I was getting out of it. I got a lot of education out of it. Um, I think my military career was probably the best part of my life, and then everything went downhill after I got out.
You risk your life for them. It doesn't get any worse. But most jobs on Earth are absolutely horrible. We'll see what else he says.
We now have, which is just shocking, in our nation, let me explain how we got into this problem. Our nation has the highest percentage of fatherlessness of any nation on the earth. If you are a boy or a young man growing up in the United States of America, your odds of not having a father are 300% higher than...
What does this have to do with working exactly? I wonder how he's gonna draw some connection to that.
Because he's talking about the personal responsibility. When you choose to be a father, if you're this whole traditional macho man, this whole patriarchy comes with responsibility. It's not just about oppressing women and getting to stick your dick inside people. You actually have a responsibility to provide for your family. And he doesn't seem to take that responsibility seriously.
The rest of the world. We have custom architected men and masculinity out of marriage and family. The result is if you're a little boy and you have no dad, and you don't wake up every day and see your dad get up and go to work, you don't understand that.
That's great, because your dad should never go to work. In nature, the mother is always there with the children. She really hardly ever leaves. Most of the time, in most of the lives, never actually, literally. You're just always with your children. And the father would only go to hunt with the other man and then come back with the food. And if you're old enough, then you would go already with the father to learn how to hunt. I get that guys like him could somehow try to compare that to working like a slave in some company or whatever kind of job you would have in this modern slave society, but it just has nothing to do with it because you hate doing it. Sure.
We hate doing it, which is why you should not impose life on us, because that is what comes with it. We do not live in a state of nature. The things that he's talking about are completely irrelevant because that hunter-gatherer lifestyle does not exist anywhere in a developed country. And then we're not even given the tools to live that way. We don't have these basic survival skills to hunt, fish, forage, to build our own shelter. I doubt that he's instilled any of those skills in his children, nor do I believe that he even has those skills himself. This is absolute utter nonsense. He's talking as if he's an authority on what it means to live a primitive lifestyle. He has never lived a primitive lifestyle. The fact that he's done videos where he's gone camping or something like that, that is not the same. He's never built shelter. He's never lived that way. He's never lived without. Even when he was camping, he was still using electricity. So no, he's never been primitive a day in his life.
there could be some jobs which you don't hate as much and some which you could maybe even like. It's possible. It's very, very few, but there are jobs like that out there. You can technically even be a hunter, which you can do for a living. It's rare, but I know a guy like that actually. Even a fisher, it's a sort of hunting. The difference is that in nature, you look forward to the hunting because you want to hunt as a man. So you're actually doing something that you want to do. And that's really what masculinity is about. If it's about anything, then it's about you doing what you want to do as a human being. And in this case, especially as a man. If you don't do what you want to do in your life, then you're not a man. Then you're not masculine. And you saying that men need to go and work like slaves, which they hate doing, is just as anti-masculine as anything can be.
It's impossible to be a man in a state of society. Living in civilization is inherently emasculating because the government controls you. The government can control when you eat, sleep, or shit. The government controls everything you do. And it is extremely depressing unless you just like being the government's bitch, which I would say I don't like it, but I guess a lot of people don't seem to mind. They just go on about their lives. They accept government tyranny as, I don't know, as a legitimate authority over their lives. But we don't have a choice. We were thrown into this shit by our parents, and instead of coming up with some kind of solution, he's shaming us as if we had some kind of control in it.
A man has to be free, wild, and he has to do what he wants to do. If he's not doing what he wants to do, then he's not a fucking man, and you're not a man.
But you're not a fucking man either. You're a slave just like the rest of us. You don't have your own anarchist society where you're just leading people and they're living in freedom in a state of nature. You're not swinging from trees. You are controlled just like everybody else. And in fact, well, I don't need to go into his personal business, but yeah, he's under the thumb of the state also. So he's run into problems with the law. He's acting like he has some type of magic solution that he's free. He's freed himself, and the rest of us are slaves. No, he's a damn slave. His children are slaves, and the only reason he had children in the first place is because, like I told y'all, that whole Jenga metaphor. He doesn't want to be at the bottom. So because he was at the bottom, now he gets to be over his girlfriend and his baby. So that's how this whole Jenga metaphor works. You get to elevate yourself at the expense of your children.
Loser.
Men are made to work. Furthermore, you don't aspire to be like your father and to be a
Well, that's understandable though, because most of the fathers of today are not really proper fathers anyway.
man who works. I'll give you an example. When I was a little boy, my dad was a drywaller, construction worker. My grandpa George was a diesel mechanic. They both wore boots. So ever since I was a little boy, I've worn boots. And I'm not allergic to work. One of my first...
Yes, you look up to your father and your mother also naturally. It's just what you do because it's your parents. It's just what naturally happens. You want to be like them, you want to learn what they do, and so on. It's just that naturally you learn how to hunt from your father, whereas today you learn bullshit.
First jobs, I was
and this is the reason why I push back on colonialization, because they are primitive societies, and now they're basically being wiped out. We're going around spreading democracy and civilization, acting as if this is a benefit for these people. No, these people have simple lives. They live off the land. They don't have to work every day. And then we think we're doing them a favor by giving them the technology, and then they basically have to work for the rest of their lives. So we're not doing them a favor. I think that once you become quote unquote civilized, you become a domesticated animal, and then it is hard to go back to the state of nature. But if you were born in the state of nature, then that would just be your natural way of life, and you you would not have a problem with not having air conditioning and electricity. And yeah, so I just don't see him presenting any actual solutions. He's just basically exploiting their oppression to make money.
A longshoreman. I lied about my age, falsified my birth certificate. It was before I knew Jesus, but I spent...
Oh, of course, he knows Jesus. So he has been watching my videos. But how did you not learn anything? If you listen to my videos, which are the Bible, then you should know that work is slavery and that you should only do what you want to do. You should follow your senses, intuition.
Why would you even have children if you just want to do what you want to do? No, your children are dependent upon you. You have a duty that you voluntarily assume to provide for your children and the baby's mom. It's not just a child. When you impregnate a woman, that is your responsibility. Under patriarchy, you're supposed to provide for the woman and the child. So you don't get to be selfish. You don't get to be individualistic. You forfeited that right when you decided to create a family.
And not be a loser slave.
My days throwing 100-pound sacks of peas off of railroad cars and also taking cargo off of ships at a port. I was 15 years of age.
So you were a slave when you were 15 already. You were lifting stuff for others who give you non-existent money to do it.
Non-existent money, the money that he needed from his girlfriend, his wealthy girlfriend's family, the money that he's making off of YouTube. Again, this is not someone who's living in a state of nature. He is not primitive. He lives off money. He's not hunting either, by the way. When y'all see him eating raw meat, he's not going out and hunting. He's buying that at some kind of butchery. So he's not, there's nothing primitive about him. This is rank hypocrisy.
Wow. What an inspiration for your children. You probably tell them this story. I was lifting crates or whatever he said when I was 15 already. Wow, Daddy, you were lifting stuff for money which doesn't exist? For other people who just sit back and eat caviar and wild meat all day while you eat pasta noodles and lift crates like a slave? I want to be like you, Daddy.
Dad worked. I knew that men worked. And you can't be a man unless you work. But if you grow up...
What are you talking about? Literally no man in nature works. Again, he's gonna say, no, or he would say if he would hear that men build houses. Yeah, literally once in your lifetime, maybe twice. The shelter. There's nothing. And even that you do in a group anyway. It's not as if you do it alone. People nowadays think that in nature you're alone with your so-called wife and children. Not at all. You always live with a huge family, a huge tribe together. And all the men hunt together, they build together, they carry everything together so that it's not heavy for you. It's just this mentality, especially this American mentality.
That hunter-gatherer lifestyle has not existed in Europe for a very long time. Europe has subsisted on agriculture. I mean, this is a complete fantasy. Even when Jean-Jacques Rousseau was looking at the so-called noble savage, he observed that in Native American tribes in Africa. He did not go to Europe. So I don't know what tribe he's talking about where he would be living in a state of nature. That's not, I mean, I don't know what he's talking. And he's from like Eastern Europe or something. It's not, I mean, he has no connection to that whatsoever. Maybe he watched it in some video or something, but he's not about that life. He has no connection to a primitive lifestyle whatsoever.
Ah, my God.
With a father who doesn't work, or you don't have a father, so you don't see a man going to work, you don't value work. The lack
That's good. That's awesome if you don't value work, because it's nothing. It shouldn't even be around.
of fatherlessness has caused a lack of commitment to the workplace. I can still remember as a little boy, this verbal process a little bit about my pops. He would sleep on the job site sometimes on the sheetrock and then send the money home to me and my mom when I was a little boy. I could still remember my dad.
Yes, because he was trying to provide for you guys. It's understandable. It's not as if he wanted to do that. If he could have had a way out of it, then he would have taken it. Nobody actually wants to work. Again,
nobody wants to work, including your children, yet you decide to impose life on them. So that is the responsibility that you have as a father to provide the means of survival to your offspring, right? You're supposed to have some kind of trade or some kind of means of survival that you can pass on. You're supposed to have some kind of land, or I mean, and I guess in the state of nature, you would have animals. I mean, I know vegans think that's unethical, but you would have something to pass down to give them a means of survival. What does he have to pass down to his children? Right? He doesn't even believe in work. I don't believe he has any property. I don't understand what makes him entitled to have a family when he does not have. He's not putting any work into it. How did he earn a wife and a child? He did not earn that. He's entitled to it. And he's made these videos talking about how women choose men based on looks, right? So because he believes he's so good looking, he's entitled to whatever woman he wants. It's not based on merit. It's just based on he says he's good looking, so therefore he can get whatever woman he wants. No, that's not how women think. Women looks are not at the top of women's priority. It's just not. I don't no, I don't know any woman who thinks like that. They maybe when if they're trying to have some fun, but when they're trying to settle down and have children, it's not about looks. It's about who's the best provider.
there may be one or two jobs out there which are okay, but that kind of a job nobody wants to do.
After a long, hard day of carrying sheetrock and hanging sheetrock, coming home and...
Yes, so what you're saying is that your father was suffering his whole life. Why would you look up to that? You know that he hated it. You could just watch him.
And why would you impose life onto children who are going to have to suffer and spend their lives as wage slaves? Why would you do that?
While he was working, he was always suffering, in pain. It's essentially torture. Why would you imitate?
I mean, he's making it seem like this is voluntary. It's completely involuntary. We have to work in order to survive. What is the alternative? To be like him, to mooch off of other people, we can just go find a wealthy girlfriend. How are you in a masculine position when your girlfriend is providing for you? You're not the head of your family. Your girlfriend is the head of the family. There's nothing masculine about that.
Laying on the floor just to stretch out because his back was killing him. And what I remember thinking is, my dad would do anything to feed his family. My dad is willing to sacrifice his own comfort and literally break his own back to feed me. That gave me an aspiration as a young man. I need to...
Your aspiration should be not to break your own back and find a better way to make money if you live in the slave society.
No, your aspiration should be to provide a better way of life for your children, not to be selfish and say, I don't want to work despite the fact that I impose life on two unfortunate children.
Society anyway.
Grow up and work a job. I started mowing lawns and working at a very, very, very young age because I wanted to help. I wanted to make money. I wanted to be like my dad. I wanted to deserve and earn the things that I obtained. And that makes you a man.
No, man, that makes you a slave. That's exactly what they want. The ones in power.
And what they also want is for you to create children so that they can exploit your children for labor, and you fell right into their hands.
Have basically literally endless money. It's limitless. And you as a slave are supposed to work.
In addition, what we're seeing now is the highest percentage of young men ages 18 to 34 living with who? Their mother. 81% of single-parent homes are run by a mother. So if you're a boy, you grow up, you have no father, you don't see a man, you don't know what a man is, you don't know what a man does.
Yeah, that's a problem, but you won't find any actual men today in this society anyway.
You don't have a man to discipline you. You don't have man.
That's good. Discipline is for weak slaves, because you have to go against your own senses. I have a whole video about this, where I talk about why discipline is for weak slaves. I'm not gonna try to explain it now, but clearly, if you go against your own senses and your own needs, you fight against yourself, and then you discipline your own children, you make them suffer. Can you be called a man for doing that? You can be called a lot of names, but not a man.
To direct you. Then you see your mom going to work from a very young age. Your mom is your caregiver and your caretaker, and she loves you, and she...
I don't know that I agree with that. I think there is a natural education and there's an indoctrination. Discipline is actually a masculine trait. Yeah, you're supposed to be logical. You're supposed to exercise restraint. That chaotic thing, and I'm not trying to be misogynistic, but that is feminine. So the stuff that he's emasculated men with his message. It's not that he doesn't understand what masculinity is. It's not just being the head of, it's also about being logical and having discipline. Gosh, I mean, and again, I'm not being misogynistic. I'm far from a misogynist, but I'm just talking about basic psychology. That is masculine, is to have discipline. And by the way, women can be masculine, or women can have discipline too. Masculinity and femininity are not exclusive to gender. So it has nothing to do with being a man or a woman. So let's not try to say that I'm saying something I'm not saying. I'm not saying that men are all masculine and women are all feminine. I'm not saying that at all.
She feeds you and she comforts you, which is great until you're in your 30s. And then at some point, you got to stop breastfeeding and go get a job, right? Or vote for a Democrat. Those are your options. And so what happens is this...
I get what he's saying, and it's bad to grow up without a father, for sure. Again, not that the men of today are really good fathers, but still, it's better than not having one. It would be way better if you would actually just end up being on welfare or something similar to that.
Right, now you're completely dependent on the government. How are you going to be in a masculine position when you're dependent on the government and your wife and your child can't even respect you? He doesn't even understand what the hell he's saying. It's so paradoxical.
Nothing is working out in your life anyway. It would be way better. Just get money from the government and do whatever you want, and you have your whole day free. You may not be able to...
Who's going to respect you when you're just the government's bitch? You don't even own anything. You don't work. You're just so useless. And there's nothing noble about what the hell he's saying.
For the best possible food, but still, it's just a way better life.
Entire generation of men, they just had their mom taking care of them, and they hit their teens and their 20s and their 30s, and their mom just keeps going to work and they keep staying home just as if they were a little boy. True or false, if you have a dad in the home, he kicks you out of the home.
The difference is that the woman would be the one mostly staying at the shelter where the whole tribe is living, and the man would be hunting, and the children would learn how to hunt. Pretty much only the boys. But you wouldn't be gone the whole day. Some people do 12-hour shifts working in a mine or lifting crates for some company.
So Dad's like, you got to get off the payroll. That's my wife. She's cooking me a pot roast. Go, right? I've been waiting 30 years to get you off the payroll and walk around the house in my underwear. That day has come. You got to go now. And so what happens is a mom wants to keep her son as her little boy, and the dad...
Okay, I guess I will comment on that. I agree with that. That's the whole point of anarcho-capitalism, or anarcho-primitivism, that you get out the capitalist structure, that you don't have to spend your life working. You just basically build shelter, and then you basically hunt and gather, and then you basically live off the land. It's not perpetual work the way that it is under capitalism, but the trade-off is that you have to give up your modern conveniences, which a lot of people are not willing to do. So um, I'm eventually going to come back and talk about people living off the grid, but again, he's not an example of this. He doesn't live off the grid. There's nothing primitive about him.
Dad wants to launch him to become a fellow man. And part of that is work. What we're looking at as well today, 19% of males, 1 in 5, ages 25 to 29, without a biological father are idle. You know what that means is? They're not working a job and they're not looking for a job. 1 in 5 men, ages 19 to 25.
That's great. Good to hear. Maybe the reason behind it is not the one that I'm thinking of, but if you realize that working is slavery, you don't want to be commented around by anybody, then it's great. It's probably not the reason behind
But if you don't want that responsibility, then maybe you shouldn't have children.
it realistically. But still, it's just a better life.
You know what they have to do tomorrow? Nothing. Awake.
That's awesome. What do you mean? That's literally what every human being wants. And again, yes, you have to hunt in nature to survive, but you're looking forward to it. So it's better than nothing because you're doing something that you want. And that's what life should be about. Always doing exactly what you want to do.
Should. That is not the state of society that we live in. We live in a capitalist society where you have to work in order to survive. We don't even have the option of being hunter-gatherers. So this is all pie in the sky. It has no connection to anybody's day-to-day life. And it really has no bearing on his life because he doesn't do anything that he's telling people to do. He goes to the grocery store, to the butcher, wherever the hell he goes to buy his meat. He does not hunt. Maybe he fished every now and then, but he's not a hunter-gatherer. And he has not built his own shelter. There's nothing primitive about him. I just don't, the audacity of him to sit up here and make this content as if he's an authority on primitivism.
Wake up at the crack of lunch, I'll order DoorDash, I'll watch porn, I'll vape, and then...
Yeah, but you're saying that everybody only does that if they don't work. Maybe that's true today, but it's not as if it has to be like that.
I will vote for a Democrat to feed me. That's the game plan. Am I making sense? If you're new...
What is your problem exactly? Why would people work if they don't want to work?
We can't...
Nobody wants to work. It's involuntary. We do it because we have to. If you're not working, then you're basically living off other people. You don't have a right to live. Nobody's responsible to take care of you. It's you and your fucking children, right? We don't want to take care of you. You don't want to work, then the Bible, I mean, I'm not a Christian. The Bible says if you don't work, you don't eat. So then you basically deserve to starve. It's not our responsibility to take care of you. And on top of it, y'all know that he was doing GoFundMe, trying to raise money for his bullshit. Why don't you just go get a fucking job instead of being a fucking bum? I mean, if you don't want to work, that's fine, but it's not our responsibility to fucking take care of you.
We can make noise, we can respond, we can holler. If you are a heterosexual man, this is a safe place. Amen. Okay, this is a safe place. The reason that work is so good for men, it gives us purpose, it gives us discipline, it gives us...
Yeah, exactly. It gives you so-called discipline, and that's because you have to go against your own senses to do it, seeing as you hate doing it, which is weakness. You're literally just admitting that you're weak. Thank you. And it gives you a so-called purpose because you're a slave, your life...
And his solution is for us to go on welfare, right? It just makes absolutely no sense that we're either on welfare or we're slaves.
is meaningless. You're not doing what you naturally want to do, which is why it's better for you to obsess over lifting crates or whatever objects for some kind of company, so that the boss can tell you at the end of every month that you did a good job. Here's your non-existing money, some numbers in your slave bank account. Yeah, absolute slave. What is this guy talking about? It's just pathetic. It's just disgusting.
Us authority. It also gives us a sense of accomplishment. It teaches us how to fail.
What have you exactly accomplished when you work for somebody else and keep the slave society alive?
You provided for your family. You fulfilled your obligation that you bred your child into hell, and so the least you can do is provide a good quality of life for your child. Which it doesn't seem like you seem to care about that, right? Why else would you work? And then for those of us who don't have children, we work just because for me, I want to live alone. I like my space, so yeah, I don't want to live with roommates and have my privacy invaded. So I work constantly so I can have my space. It's not that I necessarily want to do it, but I have to do it. That comes along with the imposition of life.
With dignity, and it prepares us to become a husband and a father so that we can love and
What the fuck are you talking about? What does work have to do with being a husband or a father? What's wrong with you?
lead and provide for women and children. Amen? This is why work is so important. If you're a younger guy and you're not working, around this room and as well as online, there are business owners and leaders that are looking to hire men who are willing to work. Thanks for joining me. My name is Pastor Mark. I've been teaching the Bible for more than...
Oh, it's a Christian guy. Wow. Huh. Now I understand. Oh my god. Oh my god. Well, then no wonder that he's so...
And this is the reason why it's so easy for him to dismiss antinatalism, because he doesn't understand the drudgery that a lot of us go through on a day-to-day basis, having to go to work, having to put on a fake smile. He just, I guess his retort would be, you're just a loser, you're just a slave, you just need to figure out a way to survive without working. This is the absolute entitlement, the absolute privilege. The fact that he thinks that everyone has the same ability to live without working, it's just delusional.
Brainwashed. Oh my god, man. And this guy is going to teach the young men of today what they should be doing in their lives, while his whole life is based on a lie anyway. Oh my...
I just love how he laughs at his own jokes. Like, what the fuck? That's just so hysterical.
My god. He believes in Jesus and has a connection to him, not realizing that I'm Jesus and I'm here to save you all. And then he also works all day long and teaches men to work, even young men, as if that's their duty. Now we can see kind of what Christianity specifically...
It is your duty if you have children. I mean, if you didn't assume that responsibility, then fine, you don't have to work. But yeah, you have a duty to provide for your family, especially when you believe in patriarchy.
Did to people. It was actually a good way to discipline people. Actually, that's funny. Oh, this is actually hilarious, because the word discipline comes from religious people whipping themselves. That's the origin of it. And now this religious guy who's brainwashed by this same religion, these Abrahamic religions, is talking about guys essentially whipping themselves. Because when you go to work, it's pretty much the same. Maybe not as bad, but you have to be disciplined to do it, which is the same as whipping yourself. You're suffering nonstop and you want to suffer.
All right, y'all. This is some pseudo-psychological babble. It's amazing that he has so many followers. I mean, I guess he's entertaining, but you're not going to get anything intellectually stimulating from this. He doesn't have any philosophical underpinnings for the garbage being spewed out his mouth. It's not as if he's read Jean-Jacques Rousseau. He doesn't know anything about anarcho-primitivism. He's just saying what he thinks things should be. He thinks that you should just sit in your ass and collect welfare checks. He doesn't understand economics. Um, he has no guarantee that his children would have any means of providing for themselves or they would even have access to welfare. So more than likely, his children are going to be wage slaves, and he does not see his role in that whole scenario. So I'm sorry, I don't take him seriously. When he sit up here and he calls people slaves, um, I'm just going to have to say he's a slave too. He's just I don't see him as being any. He's actually worse. He's actually worse now because he's a bottom feeder for slaves. So they're working, and then he's basically getting their scraps. So he's worse than a fucking slave. He's a parasite. And I'm not saying this to be overly critical, but that's his role in society. He does not contribute to society while living in it. If he wants to go off and live in a state of nature, he can do that. But he lives in a state of society while contributing absolutely nothing, and also mooching off of other people. So this is a joke. This is not an anarchist. I don't know anybody who would want to listen to him. So um I think I'm going to go ahead and get off here. I watched this video and it just really irked me. I just had to get on here and actually respond. So be sure to post some comments in here. Let me know what y'all think, because with the imposition of life comes the imposition of the duty to work. So you don't work, you don't eat, and you're basically going to starve. Um, Noam Chomsky explained it. If you don't work, then you're going to starve. That's how capitalists exploit you. They own a capital. They get to live without working. Unless you own capital, you're the slave who has to provide your labor at the lowest rate possible, just so that you can put food on the table. So I'm going to go ahead and get off here because he doesn't understand anarchy, and I just don't. I can't take him seriously. So be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will be back soon to do more